Welcome to Codecrafters, and this video we are going to continue the SQL tutorial. So let's start by creating a database. What's a database? Database is like a collection of tables. Like there will be a lot of tables in a single database. Okay. In SQL, if you need to create a database, the syntax to create a database, create database and database name. So let's get started. So you have to type create and then database. As SQL is not case sensitive, you don't have to worry about these capital or small letter case and everything. Then database name. For example, let's create the database name demo. And always end every SQL statement with a semicolon. So if you forget the semicolon, this will cause an error and you have to again change the error and everything. So this is a syntax which you are going to use for creating a database in MySQL. Okay. Just have to press enter. Okay, there's already a create a database which doesn't exist. Okay, so create database demo1. Okay, so once there is no error, you will get a message like query okay, one row affected. That's it. So if you get this kind of a message, then that means your statement is completely correct and your SQL query has been executed. Next, if you are not sure whether the database exists or not before creating, you can just give the statement like show databases. This will show all the databases in your local system. So I have this many databases in my system. So this will show all the databases. This is the syntax, show databases. Okay. Next, if you want to delete a database, you can just say drop database. Let's say I want to delete demo or like demo1 or demo. Okay, just demo. So that will delete the database. And if you again give show databases, the previous deleted database will not be there. Yes, there's only one demo1. There's no demo, right? So that's how you delete or drop a database. So we have already created a database now. That's demo1. And in order to create a table inside a database, you have to first use the database, right? So for that, you'll be giving use demo1. So this means now currently your MySQL is actually using the database name demo1. Yeah, first your step is to create a database. The other one is you have to use the database, because without using database you can't just create a table, because the system will be confused to which database should the table be assigned or created. So always create a database and then use the database and then create the table. So yeah, let's come to table creation. So how does table creation happen? Table creation has a specific syntax. You have to just follow the syntax and create the table. Okay. So let's say we have to, like, there are some specific parameters. The column parameters actually gives the names of the columns in your database, and that columns can be of the integer data type, or like in programming language we say string, right? In SQL the string is known as varchar. Okay, varchar, varchar, or float, double, everything is actually acceptable. So let's get started. By pause and process you'll be able to understand everything. So let's say we have to create a table named student. Okay, so what kind of information will a student table have? You know it logically. There will be an ID, there will be a name, and there will be age, maybe even address, city, from where the student is coming from, father's name, mother's name. A lot of things can be inside a student table. Or let's go for an employer table. The same thing happens. There will be an employee ID, there will be an employee name, employee age, city, address, and everything. So for right now, let's create an employer table, and I'll go with the syntax and everything. So first thing is you have to use the word create table, and after create table you have to mention the table name which you want the table to be. So in our case we are just going to create an employee table, right? So let's just say employee, or you can just say EMP. That's your wish. You can use any kind of short form, but just remember the table name you created later. Then after this you will be opening a bracket. Inside the brackets you will be giving the names of the column. Okay, so our names of the columns are, one is employee ID, other one is employee name, Next is employee age, city, and state maybe, or address. That's your wish. So our ID will be in the form of numbers, right? So we are just going to give emp ID and int. Int here means integer. So the employee ID is in the integer form. Also, there are some few specific things like keys and everything known as primary key, foreign keys when it comes to table. I will just, for simplicity, I'll just explain what's a primary key right now. Primary key is like you will have the unique values. You can't have duplicate values in primary key. So if you're actually assigning a column in your table as primary key, you can't have any kind of duplicate values in the primary key. That kind of value will be always unique for the entire table. Every rows will be unique. So in our case, we can only assign the employee ID as primary key because name can be repeated. You may find two employees with the same name, or even age is repeated. Address and everything can be also repeated, but ID is not something which can be repeated, something unique. So we can assign primary key for ID. We're just going to type primary key. Okay, so now our table has one column, that's employee ID. It is of the integer data type and it's a primary key. Next, we are going to create, second thing is employee name, right? So emp name. And also, while you're creating column names, don't have space, like the same way in programming language when we are creating variables, we don't include space. We used to have underscore or number, such things. So same way in MySQL, you can use underscore for creating the column names. Don't use space because space will cause an error. Yeah, so employee name, and employee name will be having characters, strings, right? So in SQL, the data type is known as varchar. And the same way, once you are actually mentioning varchar, you have to mention the size of the varchar. So let's actually, for names and everything, we will be giving around 20 to 30. So that's the maximum size limit for a name. You can give how much ever we want, but you don't have to waste computer space and everything, memory space. So let's just give a varchar of 20. Next, after that, we need employee age, right? So emp age. Here again, the age is a number, so let's give integer. Then, what's next? We have created employee ID, employee name, employee age. Let's just say we need a city and a state. So employee city is equal to, again, varchar as it's a string. Let's say 30, and employee state, or you can give salary again int. Yeah, so once you actually closed every bracket, just have a look and then you can press semicolon and press enter. Okay, there is no error because you got the message query okay, 0 rows affected. That means you don't have any errors. Now we have created this table. There is no values insert in the table, right? So if you want to insert values, before that you want to look at the structure of the table, you can just say description of the table. In MySQL, the syntax is DESE employee. Always know the spelling of the table name. It has to match with the queries. Yeah, now you got the kind of a description, or like a, let's say, blueprint of the table. So here we have all the field names, that's employee ID, employee name, employee age, employee city, and salary, and data type of those field names, integer, varchar, and int. Again, null means there can't be any duplicate value. So in our case, employee ID is the only one which has the primary key, and one table will have only one primary key. It can't have two or more primary keys. We'll come to the key concept later. And employee name, age, city, and salary can have null values, and default is everything is null, and extra, that's just don't mind the extra thing. So now we have created a table, and we also know how to see or the description or the blueprint of the table, right? So yeah, I hope this is clear.